The air in the suburban house was still, broken only by the muted hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Nathan Adams sat in his living room, the familiar sight of his daughter's toys scattered around barely registering in his mind. It was late afternoon, a time when he usually found comfort in the small routines of family life. But today, something was different. His mind felt heavy, his chest tight with an unease he couldn't explain. He had come home earlier than usual, hoping to surprise his wife Clara and their 8-year-old daughter Lily with takeout from their favorite diner. The scent of fries and burgers filled the air as he quietly stepped inside. The sound of muffled voices stopped him in his tracks. Nathan froze, the paper bag crinkling in his grip. From the direction of the kitchen, he could hear Clara speaking to Lily, her tone uncharacteristically sharp. His first instinct was to join them, but something about Clara's voice made him hesitate. She's not mad, he told himself, just firm. But the words that reached his ears next would etch themselves into his memory, reshaping everything he thought he knew about his life. Your dad is a real jerk, Clara said, her voice cold. He doesn't understand me. He can't even satisfy me in bed. Don't make the same mistake I did, Lily. Don't choose a man like him. Nathan's heart stopped. His throat tightened as he clung to the edge of the wall for balance. It felt like the ground beneath him had cracked open, threatening to swallow him whole. But Clara wasn't done. Look at your Uncle Eric, she continued. He's everything your dad isn't. He's charming, smart. He's your real father. A chill ran down Nathan's spine, his breath catching in his throat. The words echoed in his mind, louder and more menacing with each repetition. He gripped the wall, fighting the urge to burst into the kitchen and demand an explanation. But the fear of unraveling a truth he wasn't ready to face kept him rooted in place. Lily's voice, soft and uncertain, cut through the silence. Uncle Eric is my dad? What do you mean? Clara's tones softened, almost apologetic. You are too young to understand, sweetheart, but one day you'll see. I just don't want you to grow up with the same regrets I have. Nathan stumbled backward, his mind racing. He couldn't hear anymore. The paper bag slipped from his fingers, its contents spilling onto the hardwood floor. The clatter drew Clara's attention. Nathan? She called out, her voice laced with a sudden nervousness. Footsteps approached as Nathan scrambled to compose himself. His wife appeared in the hallway, her expression shifting from surprise to guilt in an instant. You are home early, she said, her voice faltering. Nathan's eyes locked onto hers, searching for answers in the face of a woman he no longer recognized. But he said nothing. Words failed him as the weight of betrayal pressed down on his chest. In that moment, Nathan knew his life would never be the same. As he stood in the hallway, his eyes fixed on Clara's pale face. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched taut between them, a fragile thread ready to snap. What were you just saying? Nathan finally managed to choke out, his voice low but shaking with barely controlled emotion. Clara's gaze darted toward the kitchen where Lily still sat at the table, obliviously doodling on a napkin. Her hesitation only fueled Nathan's growing anger. You know what I mean, Clara. I heard everything. She stiffened, her lips pressing into a thin line. Nathan, please, let's not do this here. Do what, Clara? A family discussion? A talk about what the hell you just told our daughter? His voice rose with each word, anger surging like a tidal wave. Lily looked up from her drawing, startled. Daddy, are you okay? Nathan swallowed hard, forcing himself to lower his tone. Sweetheart, go upstairs and pack your favorite toys, okay? Daddy's taking you on a little trip. Lily hesitated, her young face filled with confusion, but Clara stepped forward. No, Lily, stay here, she said firmly. Go, Lily, Nathan said, his eyes never leaving Clara's. After a moment of hesitation, Lily nodded and scampered up the stairs, her small feet echoing on the wooden steps. Once Lily was out of sight, Nathan turned his full attention to Clara. What the hell were you thinking, Clara? Telling our 8-year-old daughter that I am not her father? That she's somehow what? Eric's child? Clara crossed her arms defensively. You weren't supposed to hear that. That's your defense? Nathan barked, incredulous. That I wasn't supposed to hear it? Do you even understand what you've done? Clara's eyes flashed with anger. Don't act like this is all on me, Nathan. You haven't exactly been a perfect husband. Do you know how lonely I've been? How much I've had to deal with on my own? While you've been busy with work or... Stop, Nathan interrupted, his voice trembling. Don't you dare try to justify this. How long has it been going on? How long have you and Eric been? He couldn't bring himself to say the words. Clara's silence was answer enough. Nathan took a step back, running a hand through his hair as a bitter laugh escaped him. Unbelievable. I had my suspicions, but I told myself I was paranoid, that I was imagining things because you were my wife, Clara. My wife? And Eric? My own brother? Clara's face crumpled, but Nathan had no sympathy to spare. Do you even realize what you've done to this family? He demanded. To Lily? She's a child, Clara. She doesn't deserve this. And God help me. I can't even look at her right now without wondering. His voice broke, the weight of his words suffocating him. She's yours, Nathan, Clara cried. In every way that matters. She's yours. You've raised her, you've loved her, biology doesn't change that. Nathan stared at her, his jaw tightening. You don't get to make that decision for me. You took away my right to know the truth. You lied to me every single day for 8 years. Clara opened her mouth to speak, but Nathan held up a hand. Enough. I am taking Lily to my brother's house. I am going to hear this from him. Clara's eyes widened. Nathan, don't. Please. You don't know what this will do. No, Nathan said, his voice like steel. You've already done enough damage. Now I need to clean up the mess you've made. Clara reached out, but he stepped back. I'll take care of Lily, Clara. You take care of yourself. Nathan turned on his heel and marched up the stairs. He found Lily sitting on her bed, hugging her stuffed bunny to her chest. Daddy, why are you mad at Mommy? She asked softly. Nathan crouched down, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I am not mad at you, sweetie. You are coming with me for a little trip, okay? Lily nodded uncertainly, and Nathan helped her pack a small bag. As he carried it downstairs, Clara stood at the bottom, tears streaking her cheeks. Don't do this, Nathan, she pleaded. But Nathan didn't stop. He grabbed his keys, guided Lily outside, and strapped her into the back seat of his car. The ride to Eric's house was silent, save for the faint hum of the engine and the soft rustle of Lily flipping through a picture book. Nathan's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel as Eric's house came into view. The neatly manicured lawn, the familiar white shutters, everything looked so normal. But beneath the surface, Nathan knew, lay a betrayal that would tear his family apart. As he parked in the driveway, Lily glanced up. Are we visiting Uncle Eric? Nathan forced a smile. Just for a little while, sweetheart. He got out, scooped her bag from the back seat, and rang the doorbell. When Eric opened the door, his smile froze the moment he saw Nathan's face. Nate, he began, his voice faltering. We need to talk, Nathan said, his tone colder than the winter air. Eric's eyes darted to Lily, then back to Nathan. Yeah, okay, come in. Nathan stepped inside, clutching Lily's bag tightly. His heart pounded, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. Whatever truths awaited inside this house, Nathan knew one thing. His family felt heavier than lead as Nathan stood before his brother, Eric. Each second stretched endlessly, both men bracing for the inevitable storm. Nathan's fists clenched tightly, his nails biting into his palms. Eric leaned against the back of the couch, his arms crossed a defensive posture, but his eyes betrayed his unease. Nathan's voice was quiet at first, each word like the rumble of distant thunder. How long? Eric shifted uncomfortably. Nathan, listen. No, Nathan interrupted, his tone sharp enough to cut through steel. Don't you dare try to sidestep this. How? Long? Eric exhaled heavily, running a hand through his hair. It wasn't supposed to happen. How long? Nathan roared, his voice echoing off the walls. Eric flinched but held his ground. 10 years. The confession hit Nathan like a sledgehammer to the chest. For a moment, he couldn't breathe, the weight of Eric's words crushing him. 10 years. A decade of lies, a decade of stolen trust. A decade of betrayal. You and Clara. Nathan's voice cracked, unable to finish the sentence. Eric nodded stiffly. It started when you got that big promotion. You were always at the office, always working late. Clara felt neglected. Nathan let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head in disbelief. Neglected? She was my wife, Eric. My wife. And you? My brother? You thought it was your job to step in, to comfort her? To... His voice faltered, replaced by a guttural sound of anguish. Eric's face hardened. You weren't there for her, Nate. You buried yourself in work, acting like that was enough. She needed someone. I didn't plan for this to happen, but it did. Don't you dare, Nathan growled, stepping closer. Don't you dare justify what you did. Do you know what you've done? Do you know what you've taken from me? Eric's jaw tightened. I didn't take anything from you. You gave it away. The words were like gasoline on an already blazing fire. Before Nathan realized what he was doing, he lunged at Eric, grabbing the front of his shirt and shoving him backward. The couch tipped over with a crash as Eric fell, but he was quick to recover, shoving Nathan off and throwing a punch. The blow landed on Nathan's cheekbone, the sharp pain igniting his fury further. He tackled Eric to the ground, their fists flying in a blur of rage and resentment. Furniture toppled, a lamp shattered, and the room was filled with the sound of grunts and shouts as the brothers wrestled. You had everything, Eric shouted, landing a punch to Nathan's ribs. The perfect job, the perfect house, the perfect family. You think I wanted to fall in love with her? Love? Nathan bellowed, grappling Eric's arm and twisting it. You call this love? You call lying to me for 10 years love? You disgust me. Eric threw Nathan off, scrambling to his feet. Don't act like you are blameless. You ignored her, Nathan. You made her feel invisible. And you swooped in like the good guy, didn't you? Nathan shot back, wiping blood from his split lip. The hero brother, the better man. You are nothing but a coward, Eric. The two men stood panting, their chests heaving, their faces bruised and bloodied. The room was a disaster: overturned furniture, broken glass, and a table lying in splinters between them. Eric glared at Nathan, his voice trembling with emotion. You don't know what it's like, Nate. Watching from the sidelines, seeing the life you wanted but could never have. Do you think I wanted this? Do you think I wanted to be the other man? You had a choice, Nathan hissed, his voice low and venomous. You could have walked away, you could have told me the truth. But instead, you chose to betray me, over and over again. And for what? A few stolen moments? A child that might not even be mine? Eric's face paled at the mention of Lily. For a moment, he looked genuinely remorseful. But Nathan wasn't interested in apologies. I am going to find out the truth, Nathan continued, his voice shaking with emotion. I am taking a paternity test, and if she's not mine, I swear to God, Eric, you'll never see her again. Eric's eyes widened, fear flickering across his face. Nathan, don't do this. You'll destroy her life. Her life? Nathan repeated, his voice rising. You've already destroyed her life, you and Clara. You've ruined everything. The weight of his words hung in the air, suffocating and final. Eric had no response, his shoulders slumping under the weight of his guilt. Nathan straightened, his breathing ragged as he wiped a smear of blood from his chin. We're done here. He turned and walked to the guest room where Lily was playing quietly on her tablet. She looked up with a smile when he entered, but it faltered when she saw the bruise forming on his cheek. Daddy? What happened? Nathan forced a smile, kneeling beside her. Everything's okay, sweetie. We're going home now. Lily nodded, her trust in him unwavering despite the chaos swirling around them. As Nathan carried her bag and guided her to the car, Eric followed them to the door. Nate? Nathan stopped, his back to his brother. Don't say anything. Don't call me. Don't come near me or Lily. Not until I know the truth. Eric's shoulders sagged, his outstretched hand falling to his side. I am sorry, he said quietly. Nathan didn't reply. He buckled Lily into her seat and climbed into the car, his mind racing with the events of the day. The drive home was silent, save for Lily's occasional questions about why they had left Uncle Eric's house so soon. Nathan answered her with vague reassurances, his thoughts consumed by the next steps. When they arrived home, Nathan put Lily to bed, tucking her in with her favorite stuffed bunny. He kissed her forehead, lingering for a moment as his heart ached with uncertainty. Once she was asleep, he sat at the kitchen table, staring at the paternity test kit he had ordered online weeks ago. At the time, it had felt paranoid, unnecessary. Now it was the only way forward. With trembling hands, Nathan opened the kit and began following the instructions. As he swabbed his cheek and carefully sealed the sample, he couldn't help but feel the weight of what the results might reveal. In a few short days, the truth would arrive. And no matter what it said, Nathan knew one thing for certain. Nothing in his life would ever be the cold, gray afternoon, the kind of day that matched Nathan's mood perfectly. He'd been checking the mailbox obsessively since sending in the paternity test, his anxiety growing with each passing day. Now, as he stood in his kitchen with the envelope in his trembling hands, he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. He set the envelope on the counter, staring at it as if it were a living thing. Every fiber of his being screamed to open it, to rip off the Band-Aid and face the truth. Yet, a small part of him hoped the result would confirm what he desperately wanted to believe, that Lily was his daughter. But deep down, he already knew. With a deep breath, Nathan tore the envelope open and unfolded the crisp white paper inside. His eyes scanned the page, his heart pounding in his chest. Probability of paternity, 0%. The words hit him like a sledgehammer, knocking the air from his lungs. He gripped the counter to steady himself, his legs threatening to give out beneath him. It was true. Lily wasn't his daughter. The thought was a knife twisting in his chest. He thought of the first time he held her in his arms, the nights he spent rocking her to sleep, the milestones he celebrated with pride. None of it mattered now. Biologically, she wasn't his. For a long moment, Nathan stood frozen, the paper crumpled in his fist. Then, a new emotion took hold, one that burned hotter than the sorrow threatening to consume him: rage. Nathan waited for Clara to return home from picking up groceries. When she walked through the door, her face lit up with a tentative smile, one that quickly vanished when she saw him standing in the living room, the test results in his hand. "What's going on?" she asked, her voice hesitant. Nathan held up the paper. "I got the results." Clara's face drained of color. "Results?" "The paternity test," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "The one that confirms Lily isn't my daughter." Clara's hands tightened on the grocery bag she was holding. "Nathan, Don't." He cut her off, his voice rising. "Don't you dare try to explain this away. I want the truth, Clara. How long have you known?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but Nathan's glare froze her in place. Wasn't sure at first," she stammered. "But after she was born, I knew." "You knew," Nathan repeated, his voice trembling with fury. "You knew, and you let me believe she was mine. You lied to me for 8 years, Clara. 8 years." "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, her voice breaking. "Didn't want to hurt me?" Nathan shouted, his face contorted with rage. "You've already destroyed me. You lied to me, betrayed me, and now I find out my own daughter isn't even mine." Clara dropped the grocery bag, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Nathan, we can work through this. Lily loves you. She doesn't know any of this. You are her father in every way that matters." Nathan stepped closer, his expression cold and unyielding. "You don't get to decide what matters, Clara. You stole my right to the truth. You took away my choice. And now, you are going to face the consequences." Clara's voice wavered. "What do you mean?" Nathan held up the paper, his hand shaking with anger. "This house? It's mine. Everything in it? Mine? You? You are nothing but a liar and a cheat. Pack your things, Clara. You are leaving tonight." Her eyes widened in shock. "Nathan, please. Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't care," he said coldly. "But you are not staying here. If you are not gone by tomorrow morning, I'll start burning your things. And if you think I am bluffing, try me." Clara's voice rose in desperation. "Nathan, think about Lily. She needs mesh, needs her mother." Nathan's eyes flashed. "And she'll have you. I am not taking her away from you, not yet anyway. But you won't be living under my roof. And if you ever try to use her against me, I'll tell your parents exactly what you've done. I'll make sure everyone knows who you really are." Clara sobbed, sinking to her knees. "Please, Nathan, don't do this. I made a mistake, but I love you. I love our family." "Family?" Nathan barked a bitter laugh. "You don't know the first thing about family. If you did, you wouldn't have torn ours apart." He turned away, his shoulders heaving as he struggled to rein in his emotions. "Get out, Clara. I mean it." Clara knelt there for a long moment, her tears falling silently onto the hardwood floor. Finally she rose, wiping her face as she stumbled toward the bedroom. Nathan followed her with his eyes, his jaw tight and his fists clenched. That night, as Clara packed her belongings into hastily grabbed suitcases, Nathan sat at the kitchen table, staring at the paternity test results. His rage had cooled into a simmering ache, one that pulsed with every heartbeat. He knew he couldn't undo the past. He couldn't erase the betrayal or the lies, but he could take back control of his life. And that was exactly what he after Clara left. Her departure had been swift, punctuated by muffled sobs and the scrape of luggage wheels across the hardwood floor. Nathan had watched her go without a word, his expression stoic as he stood in the doorway, the paternity test crumpled in his hand. Now, as he sat alone in the living room, the weight of the last few days pressed down on him like a suffocating blanket. The air felt heavy, charged with emotions he couldn't begin to unravel. Betrayal, sorrow, anger, each one clawed at him, vying for dominance. The only sound was the faint rustle of movement upstairs where Lily lay in bed. She had asked about Clara's absence during her bedtime routine, her wide, innocent eyes filled with concern. Nathan had reassured her as best he could, his heart breaking with each lie. "She's visiting a friend for a while," he had said, his voice tight. "But don't worry, sweetie. I am here and everything will be okay." He wanted to believe his own words. The next morning, Nathan woke with a strange sense of clarity. The events of the past days had carved a jagged wound in his heart, but somewhere in the depths of his pain, he found a renewed sense of purpose. He couldn't undo the past, but he could protect Lily's future. After dropping her off at school, Nathan returned home and began sorting through Clara's belongings. True to his word, he packed everything she had left behind into garbage bags and old boxes, stacking them in the garage like discarded memories. The house felt lighter without her presence, though the emptiness was palpable. By mid-afternoon, he had reached out to her parents. The phone call had been short and clinical, devoid of emotion. "She's staying with you, isn't she?" Nathan asked. There was a pause before Clara's mother replied. "She is." "What's going on, Nathan?" "She hasn't told us much, but she's been crying nonstop." "Ask her," Nathan said simply. "She owes you the truth as much as she owes me." "Nathan, please," her mother began, but he hung up before she could continue. That evening, Nathan sat at the dining table with Lily, who was chattering excitedly about her day at school. He listened intently, forcing a smile when she giggled over a funny story about her art teacher. For a while, her innocence was a balm for his weary soul. But as bedtime approached, so did the looming shadow of the truth. After tucking her in, Nathan lingered by her bedside, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Lily," he said softly, his voice trembling, "you know I love you, right? More than anything." She nodded sleepily. "I love you too, Daddy." His heart ached as he kissed her forehead, the weight of his decision pressing down on him. The next day, Nathan met with a lawyer. He wanted clarity, a plan to move forward. The legal complexities of custody, paternity, and the emotional fallout loomed large, but Nathan was resolute. He wasn't going to let Clara's lies dictate his life or Lily's. The lawyer listened carefully as Nathan recounted the events of the past week. When he finished, she leaned forward, her expression both professional and compassionate. "You have a strong case for full custody," she said. "Clara's infidelity and the deception surrounding Lily's paternity work in your favor. But you need to consider how this will affect Lily. She's young, and a custody battle could be traumatic." Nathan nodded, his jaw tightening. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect her. She's the only thing that matters now." The confrontation with Clara came later that week, arranged in the lawyer's office to keep things civil. Clara looked worn and pale, her eyes red from crying. But Nathan felt no sympathy as he handed her a copy of the paternity test results. "You lied to me," he said, his voice cold. "You lied to her, and now you are going to live with the consequences." Clara's tears fell freely, but Nathan didn't falter. "I am filing for full custody. You can visit her, but you will not manipulate her, and you will not use her to fix your mistakes." "Nathan, please," Clara begged. "Don't take her from me. She needs her mother." "She needs the truth," he said sharply, "and I'll make sure she gets it." In the weeks that followed, Nathan began to rebuild his life. He immersed himself in Lily's world, attending her school events, helping her with homework, and filling the void Clara had left behind. Slowly, the wounds began to heal, though the scars remained. One evening, as they sat together watching a movie, Lily snuggled against him, her small hand resting on his arm. "Daddy?" she said, her voice soft. "Yes, sweetie. Even if Mommy's not here, we're still a family, right?" Nathan felt his throat tighten, but he managed to smile. "Always," he said, pulling her closer. "You and me, kiddo. Always." And for the first time, in what felt like forever, Nathan felt a glimmer of hope. As the credits rolled on the screen, Nathan glanced down at his daughter, who had fallen asleep against his shoulder. He kissed her hair gently, a tear slipping down his cheek. The past couldn't be undone, but the future was his to shape, and he would do everything in his power to make sure Lily grew up loved, secure, and surrounded by truth. No matter what, he would never let her feel the pain he had endured. She was his daughter in every way that mattered, and that was enough. What would you do if you discovered this level of betrayal? Share your thoughts. Was Nathan right to act as he did, or should he have chosen another path?